Welcome back to the Lore College. I am your teacher, Mr. Burns, and today we're going to go over CCS's $50,000 invitational. Okay, and this is the top 16. At the time of recording, the D23 deck lists are still not live, so hopefully we will go over them another time. And this is going to be kind of just an overview. I'm hoping to do more of a deep dive on a lot of these decks. If you have anyone in particular you want to hear about, please put it in the comments below because we are trying to get prepared for set championships and for the few that are watching this video that are going to the LCQs. I'm sure set championships is going to be like the most important thing going forward on the channel for the next couple of weeks though. So let's jump into it. So this is in order, and we're starting in 16th place, going all the way up to first. So right now we have Amber, Amethyst, Control. People say it's mid-range. I don't know when you're ever going to turn aggro with the deck, so I refer to it as a control deck. So, don't get at me in the comments if you keep hearing me say the word control. So first and foremost, this is a Demona deck. This is the deck that is trying to abuse Demona the most, and that's why we're playing 4 Grandmother Willow and 3 Ham. And you kind of don't care if the Ham gets banished because you're drawing so many cards off your 6-cost Demona. So yeah, typical stock list here. We have 4 Elanwi. Some people are afraid to play that right now because of Eleanor. It's rough playing things that only have 1 willpower in the format, but Elanwi is going to trigger things like our Gaston, right? It's also going to make our Ohana means family better. Just like how we can support our opponent's character and then banish it with Gaston, we can support our opponent's character, challenge into it with something with a larger willpower than the opponent's character, has strength, and then we can use Ohana means family to remove that damage and draw those cards. We see a return of Ursula here, the 5-cost 4/5 Whisper. It has boost 1, typically quest for 2, but it quests for more and has evasive as long as there's a card under it. We have the Louisa shift line in here. Of course, this deck abuses Isis probably better than most other decks because we're trying to play it on turn 3 as opposed to playing it on turn 4, catch our opponents off guard on that one. But yeah, just overall solid Amber Amethyst control deck. So next up we have Amber Steel. So this one is using the Lilo and Stitch package, right? It has 1-cost Lilos, has 1-cost Stitches, and it's looking to shift Lilo and Stitch on turn 3. I've actually been wondering if we could play Rockstar Stitch in this deck. It's something that I've had in my notes app for a little bit. Just another one of those characters that you can have this unassuming, 1-cost 1/3 Stitch in play, and then all of a sudden, nope, shift quest for 3 when your opponent is really not expecting it. And then even if you have it in the early game, not that quest with it, win with it type scenario, I mean, there are times I'm sure that you can just play a 3/5 and your opponent can't deal with it on turn, 3 or 4, depending on if you have a Coot or not to shift it. And you can just start drawing cards with all of your little dinky characters. One of the highlights in this deck is going to be the Infro Pink Ultra Scan Specs. So this is a 1-cost item. When you play it, you draw a card and you discard a card, and then you can banish it to give chosen character alert. And of course, alert means it can challenge evasive characters. So I'm thinking that, yes, we're seeing a lot of alert characters, and it's nice to have something in our decks that can deal with that. That's not Strength of a Raging Fire, and that's not He Heralded Thunderbolt. We even may be able to just play the specs, and then our opponents don't turn their characters sideways, and because of our threat of activation, which we're getting more value out of this card than we reasonably should, right? Your opponent should probably just make you use it so that once they do play something that is actually an important evasive character, you can't use it then. All right, next up we have Emerald Steel. So we've been seeing the Darkwing Duck package a lot in Emerald Steel. This is, of course, from Joshua Satterfield. He played in Continentals last year. And yeah, kind of what is now the traditional version, except the Queen I've been seeing, in some lists, not in some lists. The one of Judy Hopps is interesting to me Not saying it's a mistake. I just don't know when you would want it, especially considering you have, 4 one-drop Darkwing Ducks, 4 one-drop Pegasus, 4 one-drop Todd, and of course I call the Judy Hops a one-drop because if it has that underdog ability. So if we have it in our hand, then we're going to be able to play it for 1 if we are going second. And I cannot ever really see us wanting to play this if we're on the play. It's just such a low impact character. So, kind of an interesting addition here. We do have Launchpad, which combos or synergizes well with the Darkwing Ducks in our deck. We draw a card and discard a card unless we have Darkwing Duck in play. Then we just straight up draw a card, and what's nice about that is we are exerting it to use that ability, so we can get some value outside of questing or challenging and still trigger our Eleanor at the end of the turn. 4 Ursula, of course, 2 of this Angela, which has been in and out of some decks as kind of a tech card. We've seen that. We've seen, cards like Lilo, Best Explorer Ever, as a way to give our characters Challenger. This one gives it Challenger and Resist. And your Gargoyle characters no longer have the Stone by Day ability, which is not relevant in this deck, but funny enough, may be relevant in one coming up. We have this 3-cost 2/5 Darkwing Duck. It's an uninkable, and when you play it, you deal 1 damage chosen character. And I find this card to be incredibly understated for its costs, right? And one of those costs being uninkability. But in this deck, we do have Eleanor, and we are wanting to get Eleanor out and play it as quickly as possible. And the Darkwing Duck into followed up by Eleanor is a way to put a character into play that is not easily banished, that we can then, deal with something that has 2 willpower because we deal 1 damage with Darkwing Duck turn we play it, and we do 1 damage with Eleanor the following turn. Max Goof, trying to get back those strengths. Mushu. Mushu is a card that I'm still not incredibly impressed by, but it may just be a necessary evil because drawing more cards does win more games. Mushu also curves out really well into Angel so that you can ensure that you have less cards than your opponent in your hand when you quest with it. We have Vixie, which is, of course, why we have the Todds, so that we can go turn 1 Todd, turn 2 Vixie, it being a 3 cost if you do not have Todd in play, 2 costs if you do, 1/3 with evasive that quests for 2. So especially when we're on the play, we can just have this very, very aggressive evasive package going Todd into Vixie, into Mushu, into Eleanor. And, we're gaining more lore than a lot of decks can really keep up with when they are on the draw. We're also seeing the Queen in here. Todd and Copper, another way to utilize our 1-cost 2/2 coppers. Otherwise, they're kind of useless. They're saving us some ink on Vixie, but a 1-cost 2/2 is obviously not the stats that you really want in the game. And then we have the Terror that flaps in the night, which is another good reason to play a Darkwing Duck. It is a 2-cost inkable action, deals 2 damage to chosen character. If you have a character named Darkwing Duck in play, you deal 3 damage instead. And of course, Strength of Raging Fire, and he hurled a Thunderbolt. All right, next up we have Emerald Amber Princesses. And we're not going to go over the whole deck. This is as stock as it can get. And we have a few more maybe interesting ones coming up. And, we don't want to have the video being over an hour long. So, all right, now we have Turbo Stomp. This is actually a local player to me. And he is on the team Incredibles. And great group of guys. They got one guy qualified for the Continentals, so that's awesome. Sal, shout out to you. And I'm shocked that there is not more, tech cards in the deck. Anytime I play Turbo Stomp, which is quite often at set championships and 1Ks and stuff like that, he'll always have some crazy off the wall thing, and he goes, "That's the spice," and it's always a pleasure to play him. He does have Finnick in his deck, as opposed to the last one that we saw. Otherwise, pretty standard, straightforward list. With a deck like this, it's just so well tuned, and it's such a good deck that A, it's hard to make cuts and put other things in. B, it's almost completely unnecessary because the deck is so good. All right, next up we have Gengar 82 with our first Ruby and Amethyst deck of the video. And this one is looking more for the evasive package with Vixie, keeping your opponent's characters off the board and trying to control the game a little bit more, as well as taking advantage of Dumbo, of course, the absolute terror of Fabled and all-star in Amethyst. Draw more cards, win more games. I can say it until I'm blue in the face. I'm always red in the face, as I say. One medallion waits for a little bit of spice there. One dash par. Otherwise, yeah, pretty traditional list. All right, now we have another Amber Amethyst mid-range. I would like to call it control deck. Except this one, I would say, is a bit less controlling, right? We're playing things like the 5-cost Ursula to try to close out games quicker, I guess, because there's no way this deck is going to actually be fast. And instead of Alanwi, we're playing Augustin because, like I said, a lot of people are really afraid to play characters that easily are banished by Eleanor. And as we could see, like from this Violet Par here, it being a 4-2, just like I was saying with the Darkwing Ducks, you know, that's something that the playing Darkwing Duck in the Emerald Steel deck allows you to banish that you would not normally be able to banish. So, yeah. Next, we have Retro Evolution Device. So, this is a deck that a lot of people are incredibly excited about. I know a lot of, big name players ended up playing this deck. This was the sole copy to make the top 16, so I'm not sure if it's where it's supposed to be yet. I did see on Twitter that there were a few people that won a couple of 1Ks or like case tournaments in their local area, which is fantastic. This is a deck that I want to dive into even more in its own separate dedicated video because I think that this is a really fun deck that has really good catch-up mechanics, and there are not that many decks right now that when you're behind or when you're on the draw, you have ways of like seriously digging yourself out of that. I think this is one of them. So but quick, TLDR, you would love to run up the chain of value here, right? And the chain starts basically with a 3-drop. There are 2-drops in the deck, but they are not things that you want to use the Retro Evolution device on. You'd really like to either draw cards with Todd or Elsa, or get rid of a card from your opponent's hand with Lenny. And then you would love to Retro Evolution device those on the following turn because it's 3 to play, 1 to activate. You banish one of your characters and then play a character up to 2 more in cost for free. All right. Free, traditionally broken. That word, probably shouldn't put it on a card, but we digress. And then you'd love to turn one of those into a Chernobog, a Hades, an Aladdin or Genie, or this tech card Terran. And you can tell which cards are the cards that you want to get value from Retro Evolution device because they are the 4-ofs in the deck, whereas the ones that are lesser than that are more of the tech choices. So after you have your 5-drop that hopefully drew you cards or banished something, you then are going to be able to move into a Milo Thatch, ideally, which will also return a character to your opponent's hand, and it will draw you a card. Because you banish card with Retro Evolution device, you are able to draw a card from the Milo because you had to discard a card from your hand, and if 2 cards went to your discard pile that turn, at the end of the turn, you draw a card. This also helps with things like Lyle Tiberius Rourke. And I did catch a match that Diego had where his opponent was at a very high lore total and he was able to claw that back away with the Lyle, with the Milo Thatch. And then, of course, you can play a Malicious, Mean, and Scary, and you can Retro Evolution device your Milo Thatch into a Prince Philip to banish your opponent's entire board. Again, I'd like to do a bigger deep dive on that, but that's the TLDR of how the deck goes down. All right, this one's hard to fit on on the screen. Sorry if it's sorry if some of these decks are pixelated or smaller. It was just the nature of how many cards are in them. So this one is from Dylan Crawley, a player out of Florida who has some decent accomplishments to his name. Definitely a very good player, and this is the first player in our top 8, not our top 16. and he played what he affectionately calls Blurple because Amethyst is that deck that wants to play a 2 cost, like we were saying, has the Grandmother Willow, has the Ham, and then cheat out characters that you should not be able to play as quickly as you can. All right, next up we have the spicy one. We have Ruby and we have Emerald, and it's not aggro. It is another Retro Evolution device deck using Prince Philip and the Leviathan. Okay, so again, we would love to play a 3 cost, right? And then turn that into a Dr. Bush route. Or in this deck, we could just play a bunch of actions and play an Olaf and ignore all of that, and the Olaf could go directly into a Prince Philip after you play Malicious, Mean, and Scary, or the Leviathan and banish your opponent's entire board. We've seen something similar to this pre-rotation with Hercules Return, and this is just that post-rotation version. And I love that this player could get 7th place in such a stacked field. This is something that A, could be something really fun to play as set championships, or B, could catch people completely off guard and you could win an LCQ pod with it, or even top 8 continentals. So all right, next we have Nathan Tripp, of course, from the Zan podcast. I don't know if there's another name for that podcast. My bad. It's the channel is called Zan Saeed, but I love Nathan. I always look forward to seeing him at events, and he brought a more spicier version of this deck list, right? So he is, of course, playing Finnick, but in this one he's playing Malin Lee, and that only helps things that sing together. So because of that, we are playing Under the Sea, or I should say we're playing Under the Sea. So because of that, we're playing Malin Lee. So bringing back Under the Sea, we're also bringing back the Mickey Mouse Amber champion because, well, a couple reasons. One, it sings Under the Sea all by itself. So, one of the problems with having the other Mickey Mouse is that you end up having to quest with it so that your other characters can reduce your opponent's character's strength, and then you quickly run out of characters that have enough to get up to Singer 8, but Mickey Mouse all by himself gets up to Singer 8. He's also going to be pretty good against the opposing Eleanor decks or any of the steel-based decks. So, yeah, a little bit of spice in there. All right. Again, a long one. Lots of one-ups. So the Black Cauldron, I'm actually not a fan of in this deck. Yes, you are playing other items, and I like to say I don't want to play an uninkable item when my opponents, have the opportunity to banish it. As we've seen from the Retro Evolution device Emerald Amethyst deck, people are playing cards in their deck that can banish items. And at least the Junior Woodchuck Guide, you have the ability to just play it and use it in the same exact turn and not give your opponent any opportunity to gain value from you. Whereas the Black Cauldron, no other choice. You have to play it, or you have to just let it sit and rot in your hand, right? There's no way to draw a card and discard a card in this deck. But yeah, still got him up to 5th place, and huge shout out to you and all of your spicy one-ups. All right, next up we have Dominic23 with another Steel Emerald deck. And what's interesting about this one is, well, it has Broadway. Broadway is a bodyguarded 5-cost inkable 4/6 quest for 2, and it is a gargoyle, so it has that Stone by Day ability, but the Angela turns that ability off, right? This deck also has Mother Knows Best and a Violet Par. So I love Violet Par. I think it's one of the best steel cards in the new set. Is a 2-cost inkable 3/2 with resist 1. I'm intrigued though. I feel like there would be not a lot that we're giving up to play the Shift Violet Par. And yeah, we don't have a lot of things that trigger it, but we do have some things that trigger it. And it triggers on its own, right? So this Violet Par can kind of keep things at bay. People don't want to challenge into it, or people don't want to exert their characters while you have this thing ready because it challenges so well. And then all of a sudden you can flip that all on its head by shifting onto something that is a 4/4 that quests for 2. And is filtering your card selection. We don't really have any songs that abuse that. Like most of our characters can already sing Strength and already sing Mother Knows Best. So it's not like we can get some big value with something like Colors of the Wind shifting early. But I still think that that's something that might be underexplored if we find Violet Par to be a good card in the deck already. All right, and next we have Zan Saeed, and of course, from the Zan Saeed podcast with Nathan, and playing the same exact deck as Nathan. So huge props to them, like really figuring out this deck, figuring out the format, and both of them making top 8 with it. All right, in second place, we have Haymaker with Emerald Steel. And yeah, kind of everything we've already seen. I mean, I am told that this deck is the deck to deal with Eleanor. Uh, One thing that now that we've seen all the Emerald Steel decks that I did want to point out is where's Touch the Sky, right? That was kind of like the reason that a lot of people were playing Emerald Steel. And I think for the better, people have realized like, hey, we can't really have cards in our deck that if we don't have the other piece, it does nothing, right? They have to be just extraordinary, right? Like, sure, strength. If we don't have characters, it does nothing. We're probably losing. But like, if we just draw a couple of locations and no touch the skies, or a couple of touch the skies and no locations, sure, we can ink them, but like, we could be doing much better things with our ink, and we're already drawing so many cards. I mean, this one is 4 Mushu, 3 Queen, and of course, the absolute queen of Disney Lorcana right now, 4 Eleanor, which again, just almost every Emerald deck revolves around this. If you're not Retro Evolution device, you're probably an Eleanor deck, and draw more cards, win more games. We also have Launchpad in here, like we've said previously. So yeah, I think people maybe have moved away from Touch the Sky, and I think that could be for the best. And the winner was Garrett Martin on Ruby Amethyst with Dumbo, with multiple Dumbos even. Even this 3-cost 2/2 quest for 1 evasive, when you play it, you give another character of your evasive until the end of your turn. Sorry. All right, but yeah, kind of traditional. We do see the 1 medallion weights in there again. I say traditional as if this is like, a highly played deck right now. I know it was like super exciting for a couple of weeks there, and people were trying out all kinds of builds with it, and then it kind of got brushed aside. And well, it just won this massive invite only $50,000 tournament, right? So maybe don't brush it aside too soon. If you watched my set reviews, you know I love Randall Boggs. I think this card is absolutely fantastic, and I love seeing it in this first place deck here. So all right, everyone. Yeah, again, leave a comment below if there are specific decks that you want me to cover. It doesn't necessarily have to be from here. It could be from, any ink decks really that you've seen that are successful, or something that you're thinking about bringing set championships that you're okay with the broader audience knowing about. But yep, till next time.